Hello, everybody, and welcome to the pilot episode of For Korf's Sake, a sports podcast focusing on all things English korfball. Now, we see ourselves as trailblazers, and whilst other people have had some korfball players on their podcast, nobody has ever really dedicated an entire podcast to this wonderful scene. So, we're breaking barriers and we're going to try to give you guys a multitude of content for the diehard fans, all about English korfball and all about the biggest players and clubs that we can.
All 7 of you.
Yeah, exactly. Our plan is to rip back the curtain behind the biggest players, biggest clubs, referees, all of that good stuff in the Korf community and share a deeper level of insight with you guys on a kind of bi-weekly basis. So think players, think coaches, think kind of behind the scenes of what we can possibly get, and basically just have a load of fun along the way. So you can expect every couple of weeks a fun-filled 45 minutes of good Korf chat and some shocking jokes. But that's the plan, and now we should probably introduce ourselves properly. So I'll go first. My name is James Sawyer, and I've been playing korfball since 2015 when a good friend of mine, Toby Clark, recommended me to go to Brighton University Korfball Club. And since then, it's been a 10-year downward spiral of Korf obsession. So lame. I am currently playing for Beck Korfball Club, Beck 2. Not quite with the legends here, as we'll speak of in a second, but Beck 2. And this is where I met what I deem to be the perfect co-host for a korfball podcast. So let me introduce you and provide an intro to this icon. You ready? Over 400 National League appearances, over 400 National League goals. Don't fact check that. 65 England caps, 45 goals for a country, multiple World Cup appearances, multiple European Championship appearances, multiple England Grand Finals appearances. She's truly done it all. A true icon of the British game who's continuing to etch her path into greatness in the history books with each passing year. Now she's coming for the podcast world with me. So please join me in welcoming the legend that is Caitlin Fitzgerald.
We'll caveat and say other players were not available for recording at this time. Yes, do not fact check any of those. My sister's just walking behind me. Good start to the pod. Yes, my name is Caitlin. I have been playing korfball for, I think, 14 years, I think. Yeah, so I think I started at 14 and now at the grand old age of 28, have had an on-off relationship with the game since then. Mostly on. So I started at Bromley Korfball Club. Shout out to Bill Berry for getting me involved. I was there for a couple of years and then moved to Beck, where I got to play with some really, really high-level players. And yeah, some exposure to England squads, etc. Not for a while now, so I'm making my big comeback by starting a podcast. Yes, I had a move from Beck, had a year at Trojans, had a year not playing at all last year, and have now made my big return, making waves back in the England Korfball League with Beck. So yeah, very happy to be back, feeling very positive about the sport, and so much so that I'm now doing this. So that is me, I think.
It is a triumphant return to action for the big Fitzgerald, the only Fitzgerald, should I say, which is a shout out to our good friend George. Amazing. Listen, we should probably quickly run through for the listeners what the goal is of this podcast. We mentioned before we wanted to get behind the scenes, but really the whole idea of this is, since I've joined Beck, I've been able to receive kind of a behind the scenes action and look at how much goes into korfball and how much fun there is in drama and all the different things that go along with it. And I basically wanted to bring that to the community and basically give them what I'd sort of got and what made me so passionate about the sport. So we wanted to bring that to them. And I thought that the reality is Caitlin's going to be the perfect person to be able to provide insight alongside some of the people that we speak to. So yeah, that's the overall goal of the podcast. But we've got a bit of a corker, I think, to start, which will hopefully be quite fun. So we have no idea what this is going to look like, genuinely. And what I mean by that is today's episode, we got 2 guests joining us who are going to critique mine and Caitlin's predicted league tables, which will be quite fun. But in weeks moving forward, we might just have one guest on where we're kind of doing a more traditional podcast episode where somebody gets to kind of learn a bit more about that player / coach, referee, whoever it is that's a big influence in the korfball community. And then sometimes we'll do, round tables and behind the scenes of European tournaments. Who knows what will happen? But the goal is to get it up and running. You can see it's not a professional product right now. It's just our way of kind of, I guess.
So far.
Yeah. Exactly. So, sweet. So, I guess that is now probably a good time to introduce our first two guests to the podcast. So, you ready, Caitlin, for another?
I'm ready. Not one, two. We treat the fans, don't we?
Right. So I'm gonna hopefully give some good gas to our guests. Okay, they're gonna get a similar intro to you. Okay, right. So,
oh yeah, fact check.
That's the hope. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to introduce our first guest, okay? The current captain of one of the National League's best teams, an England Korfball League staple who's also made 45 appearances for Ireland, scoring 65 goals in that time. Finished top goal scorer at one of those tournaments. She's a legend. And alongside her talents on the court, she broke into the commentary scene last year, providing outstanding insight for some of the European games, as well as our own kind of finals here in England as well. Not just an icon of the korfball world, but also one of our all-time favourite people in the korfball community, guaranteed for good chat. We are beyond excited to welcome Lizzie Tighe to the For Korf's Sake podcast.
Oh, woo woo! I was gonna think, thanks for the nice intro. I don't know who that person is, but she sounds great.
I know, honestly, I don't know either. Should have had my intro. Facts on facts.
There may have been some porkies. Maybe. I don't know. It could be true, Caitlin. It could be. I don't actually know the stats. I couldn't find them. So that sounds about right. So
I'd be like, I hear she scores 20 goals per game.
Yeah, minus the 19.
Yeah. Anyway, how are you, Lizzie? You good?
Yeah, great. Buzzing to be here. Thanks for welcoming me on. Yeah, I mean, any excuse to just chat korfball, right?
Yeah, there we go.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Right. We should also probably bring on the second guest. Alongside Lizzie, we are immensely excited to bring on the second inaugural guest of the For Korf's Sake podcast. Currently managing Bromley in the National League after taking them to promotion a few years back. He's taken a youth squad, developed them into a true force, challenging the National League's best teams. However, Bromley is just one of his coaching successes. A previous coach of Kingfisher, KV, Croydon, to name a few, he's become a staple name in the community and is widely considered to be one of the most influential coaches of the last 10 years. Alongside his efforts for the EKL, he's also currently the head coach of the Welsh team and has garnered huge respect for the work he's done over there over the last few years. We're extremely excited to pick his brain over the next half an hour. So please welcome Ross Carr-Taylor to the podcast, everybody.
Right. Do you want to come and be my PA?
It's good gas, isn't it? It's good gas.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed that, to be fair.
That's it, Ross. We end there. That's the whole point.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, that was it. See ya.
I'm happy to go. It's downhill from here.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun podcast. But thank you to you both for joining. I'm going to, because this is going to be visual for people, I'm going to share on the screen our EKL predicted end of league table for 25-26. And then we're going to allow Caitlin to run through it for a minute or two. And then Ross and Lizzie, you guys are free to absolutely hammer her for her opinions if you think any of them are wrong. Can we see Caitlin's league predictions?
Yeah. Sadly, we can.
Take it away.
Right. So this is my league predictions for the year. I know obviously we're most teams 2 games into the season. So I must admit, after game week 1 is when I made this. So had a slight influence from some of the results there. But I actually think I put Beck at the top there. I do think that is a pretty solid pick, and I'll stand by that. But I genuinely think positions 2 to 10 are really all up for grabs this year in a way they haven't been in the past 5 years or so. The top 4 have been pretty solid the last couple of years, but this year, and especially already, we're seeing with how the results go, we've had that anyone can beat anyone in that mix almost. I think not every game, but I think there are definitely some opportunities to take points off of everyone. So I've gone again, not just because you're here, Lizzie, but Bristol second. I don't think last year was one-off or a surprise. I think Bristol have been building something for quite a few years now, and have already shown this season that they're going to score lots of goals, over 30 at the weekend, which against a solid opposition in Norwich Knights. So I think we're well on their way to getting into that top 4. And I've got the last 2 making up my top 4 is Trojans and Nomads. However, ask me tomorrow, I might see something different. I really took wouldn't bet on myself that these are going to be correct. I think Trojans still have a core group that's pretty strong, and I think for their the games they see as big crunch matches. We might see some familiar faces return just for those fixtures. And I've got Nomads making up the top four there. Purely, they're very strong at home in typically smaller hall. I think favours their games, very strong at home, and have been pretty consistent in the top four for the past few years. Again, so making up positions 5 to 10, I really think this could chop and change, and that's what I've gone for. I've gone with newly promoted Bearsted finishing last. I think they've recruited pretty well in the off season, and I think they might take points off some of these teams. I'm just not sure it's going to be enough, and I do apologise, Ross. I have got Bromley down there in 9th. However, again, I think Bromley will take points off teams. I think it's always great to see a team come up and stay up. And have been able to definitely learn from that experience. And I think they are a team capable of finishing anywhere within that middle pack. So I will leave it at that for now. Those are kind of my thoughts and justification. And if there's any immediate things you guys think I've got way wrong, I'd love to hear. But if not, I'll ask a few more specific things.
I'll leave it to you to start with, Ross. Go on.
Okay, fine. Okay, so I think the obvious one is Beck. I don't see anybody, and that's going to sound horrible, I don't see anybody taking points off them this season. I really don't. They're still a very strong side. They play really good Korfball, so I can't see anyone taking points off them. Brisbane Thunder, 100% second, and I see them losing to very few teams again this year. They really have grown over the last few years. Obviously, they've gained a few players as well, but the core players that have been there for the years have really pushed that team forward for me, and a definite second. Now, this is where it's going to go a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
I completely understand what you say about Trojans. They've got some of the best players that have ever played this game. Sam Brooks, Nina Stillnell, Catherine Brooks on Sunday, absolutely unbelievable defender. But are those players going to be able to turn up and get them out of trouble every single week? I struggle to believe that they will. Where I would put them in that group, it's very difficult to take them out of the top four. So I'm going to leave it with that with Trojans. Nomads, again, as you say, they're really good at home. The two differences in teams that turned up to play us and that turned up to play Tornadoes at the weekend begs me to think that they're not going to finish in the top four this year. They've lost a lot of players to University and to Stockings, so they basically only have one of their girls left from last season. So I think they're going to struggle. So I would push them out the top four. It hurts me to say it. I'm going to push Tornadoes up into that top four. After watching them on Sunday against Nomads, I'm going to put Tornadoes up into the top four this year.
Yeah, I think surprise was not the weekend for me. I would agree.
I was there watching the game. It was literally nip and tuck until the last 6 minutes of the game, and Tornadoes just scored 6, 7, 8 on the bounce, and it was game over. But as I say, Nomads had Emily Brooks, a girl called Layla, who's 15 years old, really, really tall, got so much potential. And no disrespect to those two players, I didn't even know who they were. So they are going to struggle. I think Terry Ford was on the bench. I don't know where some of their players were. I have no idea. But I think that's going to be the same with a lot of these teams, because Nomads have lost players to University. When half term comes, those players come back and results change. And that's going to happen with a lot of these teams. So then if I move to the bottom, Bearsted have got some extremely experienced players, and that's what's helping get promoted, and backed up by some young juniors that are coming through.
Yeah.
Players like Jack Chambers, who's completely underrated. He's an amazing player. I was lucky enough to coach him. They have some amazing players. Rob Williams, who was a stalwart for England for many, many years. I just feel that playing in the National League week in, week out, when you get to a certain age, and it's no disrespect to their age, when you get to a certain age, becomes difficult. It does. It becomes difficult. So they're at the bottom for a reason. Unfortunately for me, even though I'm playing them on Sunday, I would keep them at the bottom. That's probably going to give them a lot of ammunition to try and... I will keep them at the bottom. But I do believe they will take points off some teams this year.
Yeah.
And I'll point the teams out. I think they'll take points off. I think they've got a good chance of taking points off at Kingfisher this year. Now, Kingfisher are a team that is ingrained into my heart. I coached them for 15 years from the lower leagues up into the National League. They are just going through a bit of a transition phase at the moment. They've lost some very good players. They've still got amazing players, again, underrated players like Mallory. Coached her since she was very, very small. She's a fantastic player, very underrated. Leon Geddes, very good player. but they just don't have a core 8 players that are going to be there week in, week out, which is what you need in the National League.
Yeah, it's the consistency with them. I would agree with that. Yeah, the team that turned up to play us at the weekend just gone. Again, as you say, has got some really strong individuals. Mallory, Aisha, Liam scored a fair few. But the consistency with them and training, and I know they're having that transition, as you say. So think that they could come out with a surprise result and maybe beat a Norwich or someone like that. But equally, will drop points and maybe even like Tobias did or whoever maybe. So definitely kind of one that could go anywhere within my table, I think, Kingfisher.
God, Lizzie, I'll let you take over for a minute.
I was going to say, I agree with you on a lot of that. Obviously, I'm biased, but I agree that the top 2 are probably going to be as they are. I'd like to think we could beat Beck at least once in this season, but based on previous form, something's got to change for that to happen. So I think that's a pretty fair prediction. Totally agree about Nomads as well. The problem being, I'm not sure who's going to be consistent enough to knock them out of the top 4. I actually would have put money on like Knights or Kingfisher to do that, but both have started the season dreadfully. They've got the experience, they've got the kind of players to do it, but you actually just have to win enough games to get into the top 4. And based on that, you've got Tornadoes, you've actually got Tigers as well, who had a terrible season last year, mainly I think because of haul time and problems kind of outside the team's control. But actually, if you've got that really talented bunch of players from Cambridgeshire playing together, they picked up at least one player from Kent as well, Isaac. And if they can get firing, they haven't screwed up yet. And that's actually not the case for almost half the teams in that middle section already. So I think those guys could get involved as well. I'd quite like it to be interesting in the top 4. I'd like it to be it would be great if neither Trojans or Nomads were in the top 4 just for variety's sake. I think at least one of them will be up there, but I'm not sure who at this point. Because I think both have got some pretty big vulnerabilities that I think you've rightly pointed out, Ross. The Trojans stars, are they going to be able to carry the team for 18 games this season? I don't think so. And Nomads have already shown that they can slip up against a team like Tornadoes. You might know because you watched them at the weekend. Have Tornadoes recruited well? Have they got anyone new, or is it actually just they're playing like solid Korfball?
Just playing solid Korfball. I mean, they did last season as well. They've got a core youth that are probably going to be a force to be reckoned with over the next 5 years if they can keep them together. Yeah, they haven't recruited anybody. They just recruited from inside, and Eleanor's back, obviously she makes a massive difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely star player.
Yeah, they've got a core strength. It's going to sound really horrible. Outside of their top 4 boys at the moment, if they do get an injury, I think they might struggle a little bit. But their top 4 boys are strong. Their starting 4 girls are strong. They've probably got a 5th in this, or they've definitely got a 5th girl, the 6th girl there that can come in.
I'd love to see them back in the top 4. I just think it's unlikely, at least for me at the moment, because of the number of fouls they give away. They're a great group. They play really competitive Korfball, but you can't win if you give the other team 10 penalties. I don't know if they did that last weekend. I've not seen them this season, but the last few years for me, I'm just like, you can't foul the other team that much and expect to win.
Yeah. Maybe that discipline's coming as that group get a bit older, and then as you say, they've been that because they had a big turnover, didn't they, a few years ago with losing Place University, but they've definitely kind of rebuilt, it seems, and they're adding a player like Eleanor Parker back into that mix. I think last time I played against her, she dropped like 5 easy goals on just all on the outside. Such a lovely relaxed, not that I'm exactly world's top defender, but just really so relaxed, such a consistent shot. So if you add that into that team, she's going to bring you 4 or 5 goals a game. Her free passes are like penalties. She doesn't miss them. That could be the edge that they need, and maybe a bit of a dark horse this year. I wouldn't have expected that result of the weekend, but we'll see. I mean, that's what makes this year so a bit different to previous years. With that there's definitely 2 places in that top 4 I feel are really up for grabs. Maybe just a word on Bromley, Russ, and kind of how you feel about this season, having had that last year in the National League, doing really, really well to stay up. And that is another team, I think, that really developed, that kept a kind of core group over the years and added some individual talent to really get Bromley to the level they are. And obviously it's makes me very happy to see Bromley's team I started at, so we're all very happy to see that they're now a National League club. And not just that, but the size of the club and the youth setup there is really great to see. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of see what your thoughts about Bromley were for this year, and maybe how coaching at Bromley is different to previous roles you've had in England?
So I would see us at the moment, if I looked at that table and I couldn't tell you who was not going to be in between 5 to 7, I'm going to put us in between 5 and 7, somewhere in that role. It's tough. So we played obviously Trojans on Sunday now. When you're playing with young players who've got a huge amount of talent, trying to get players like Neela and Sam Brooks, just the little things that they know from the years of experience that can score 2 or 3 goals. I mean, we lost by 4. It wasn't a great gap. So just that little bit of experience of the silly goals that are conceded, I class them as silly goals that are conceded, are going to be the difference to where we finish in the league. And that's what I try and instill into them, try to cut them out. I try to give them the knowledge of how these players are going to score the goals past you. Everyone can score from the outside and the inside, but it's the cheeky little goals that the players like Neela and Sam and many other players in the National League. I mean, the 2 Bell brothers scored a hatful from us under the post just from us being the wrong side and that kind of thing. So I'm going to put us 5 to 7. In terms of where it differs from coaching any other teams, it's not much different from when I first took over at Kingfisher. When I first took over at Kingfisher, the youth that we had there, when you're looking at Amy Turner, Rachel Turner, Mallory Gore, Sammy Bedford, who probably no longer plays. I think she plays up in Nottingham, maybe still. John Denton. We had a lot of solid players that were youth that we just took through and through and through. But there were quite a lot of similarities to when I started. So one of them was commitment, trying to get players to training every week, trying to get them to commit. If you want to be the best or compete with the best, you have to be at training and you have to turn up every week. And that was my issue with Bromley in the first season, especially. I don't think we had a single training session in the first year with a full squad of first team players. We'd have 5, maybe 6, and we were bringing the second team in and juniors in just to make up the numbers to get to be able to train. And we came close that year into getting to playoffs, but it was never going to happen if you're not training every week. The following year became better. We probably had 90% of our training sessions were with a full squad. And that's just progressed as we've gone on. I've tried to instill that into them. But the biggest thing with Bromley is the youth program. And it's why I got involved. I'd retired from coaching, funny enough, after COVID. I retired from coaching. But I was watching Bromley because I was coaching a junior team. The junior setup they've got, the work that Natalie Moore does is unbelievable. They've got probably 40, maybe 50 juniors on their books at the moment. They train twice a week on a Wednesday and a Thursday through all different age groups. And they progress up. And most of the Bromley squad, barring a couple of players, have come through the ranks from Bromley youth, which you don't often see in a team these days. Yeah. Most teams are fabricated. Norwich Knights, I suppose, because you have the university draw. Cambridge Tigers, a university. Tornadoes, got players that have come to the ranks from Kingfisher. It's just not now. You go to university, you lose players to university. We're going to lose a few to university in the next couple of years. And luckily, we've got the players coming through. But they are really a joy to coach. They're like a blank canvas, and trying to instill the right things into them from the start it's really good to see. They're a joy to coach, I have to say. They're just like Kingfisher when I first took over. I've got that sort of passion back with it. It's really good.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great all round, and to hear that you're enjoying coaching again and be part of a club like that. You say that has that established pathway now into a National League team. It's great to have a club like that in the National League and going from strength to strength almost. It seems. Sorry, yeah, James, go on.
No, I was going to weigh in on this because having played at Beck 2, we played Bromley prior to them going up in the league, and the difference from them when they were playing, I guess, in the regional league to playing in the National League is worlds apart. Like Ross said, they're a canvas, like a blank canvas, but the reality is that improvement over the last 2 years, their ceiling is incredible. And watching that Trojans game at the weekend, you can really see how far along they've come versus 2 years ago. And that experience in the National League is going to be massive for them, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. And I just kind of leading on from that, it's kind of a question for both of you, actually. What do you see as your kind of biggest crunch matches this season, and any maybe coming up soon, or those must-win games that are going to make a difference to you both?
Shall I hop in?
Yeah, let's start with this.
Yeah, okay. Having been at some pre-season friendlies earlier in the year, my feeling was that any match between Bearsted, Bromley and Tornadoes is going to get very interesting. I will say on the pitch, but probably also a little bit of aggro at the sidelines or between players. So I think those will be really spicy, we'll say. And the results will really matter for all of those teams. And everyone knows each other a bit too well as well, I would say. Might at this point, based on form, throw Kingfisher into that mix as well. So any matches between any of those teams are going to be close. And then I would also say, based on previous form, you can always bank on Norwich Knights to have a draw, basically in any game. I think they had 4 draws last year. And so the odds of them drawing again, pretty high. I think Tornadoes are pretty good at getting draws as well. And it doesn't matter if they should, in theory, like on paper, be losing the game or winning the game, they might get a draw. And that always makes the league table pretty exciting. So I think those are my ones. Basically everyone, but specifically Norwich Knights and Tornadoes to have a draw at some point. And any of those Kent-based or Kent-Bromley-based teams will get very interesting when they play each other, because everyone knows each other very well. Players have played with each other under different coaches, and the results will really matter to them.
Yeah,
I'd agree.
Great point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Fearsted obviously the weekend. We've got Cambridge Tigers the week after that, and again, we were close to them both games last year. So I think that's going to be an interesting game. Even Norwich Knights, we were close to Norwich Knights last year. So yeah, I mean, we don't really fear anyone. I mean, nobody likes to play against Beck, to be fair. They just don't. You end up chasing the ball around for 55 minutes, and you might have a bit of fun with the ball for 5 minutes.
That's what last year's final felt like.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know. We don't really fear anybody. I mean, we've got nothing to lose. We were seen as the underdog last year. We managed to pull a draw out of the bag against Kingfisher, who were much stronger then than they are now. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting season. The first 2, I think, are set in stone, 100%. I think the rest is up for grabs completely.
Yeah, and just with those word on the first 2 with Bristol, Lizzie, what do you think Bristol can do this year to get closer to Beck or maybe even beat Beck? Is there any, not to kind of get any, tactical insight out from you, but just in general, how do you feel? Like you feel pretty confident about Bristol consolidating that top 4? I definitely do. I think they'll finish definitely second, but in terms of going that extra mile, is there anything that's different about you guys this year? Maybe that exposure to European competition, just a word on how that's going to benefit you all.
I think there's probably a few things. I think, to be honest, the start of last season and building through that first half, I think a lot of us in the team knew that we should be a top 4 side, should be looking to getting in the playoffs, ideally into the final, all of that. But I think that actually building enough form and putting together enough wins to do that was actually the task that we had to get. You can't look too far ahead. You actually just have to get the job done. And we'll have to do the same this year. But actually at this point, we have beaten everybody in the league apart from Beck. Last year, at the start of the year, we'd never beaten Knights, we'd never beaten Nomads, we'd never beaten Trojans until the semi-final. And I think that actually that's probably enough firsts in 1 year. I think I did the maths by like February, we'd already topped the number of points we'd ever gotten in a season. And then we went on like a 7-game winning streak. So actually, we didn't want to peak too soon, is what I'm saying. I think that confidence, the experience, going to Europe will be really good. I think that Beck are a brilliant team. They play really nice korfball. Ultimately, no one in the league is surprised by the korfball they play. It just relies on them doing that style of quite straightforward korfball very well. And if you can disrupt that enough, if you can score enough goals against them, and if you can get in the heads of some of the key players, so I'd give Joe Bedford as an example, that brilliant player will score loads and loads of goals. If you can make a game really, really close, it can get interesting, because actually that pressure is something that most teams haven't managed to put on Beck in the last few years. And it's much easier to win a game when you're relaxed and feel like you're already ahead. If you can get a 4-goal lead on a team, suddenly things become more interesting, which we just didn't manage to do in the tail end of last year. We actually did play Beck away at the start of last season, and we were 1-up by the start of the first half. They obviously adjusted. They did beat us fairly comfortably in the end, but, we've stuck with the team for 30 minutes and actually just piecing those bits together. See if you can do 30 minutes, can we do 45? Can we do 50? Can we then do an hour? The question remains, it would be nice to beat them. If we were going to beat Beck in one game at the end, I'd prefer to leave it until it matters, in a final, ideally. We'll see. I think that there's lots that's going for us, and ultimately we're a younger team. We're probably a deeper squad. No offense, Caitlin.
No.
and
very true.
and we've got everything to win and like nothing to lose. So I think that's lots in our favour.
Yeah.
And I've seen Beck bottle a lot of finals. So
yeah, I was gonna say Beck got rid of that bottling reputation though. That's still there.
I watched enough of those cheering for Beck that I know what can happen.
I've seen enough of them.
Yeah, I think me and Lizzie have sat on the bench for a few of them. No. I was actually gonna caveat it, and I think it'd be really interesting to just get Lizzie's opinion, but also I'd love to get Ross's opinion on this, because I think squad, potentially talking about Beck, the depth of squad has definitely been a question mark, I think, maybe for a couple of years now, right? But I mean, I think it's a valid point, but I guess my question to both of you would be, I don't know if I necessarily agree that Bristol have got a better depth than Beck do. I think having someone like Davesh Patel who's currently the fifth boy, I would argue that Davesh Patel walks into the Bristol team. I would argue that arguably none of the Bristol boys walk into the fifth spot for Beck. It's just an argument to say. In terms of girls, I would have a similar point. So I'd love to know, like, from both of your perspectives, I would agree. We'd expect a top team like Beck, hopefully, to have 6 boys and 6 girls in rotation that are all at the top level. But I'd love to know your thoughts on whether or not you think the depth is going to be a problem for Beck this year. And actually, if you think, no, the depth is pretty good already, looking at the rest of the teams that are competing.
I guess I take your point, and I agree that if Dav's on the bench, that is a pretty deep, in one sense, the word bench. I more mean that Becca, probably less so this year with the return of yourself, Caitlin, and then also you, James, back from your travels. But it was a pretty empty looking bench in that final. And Lisa Swain started to look pretty stressed when Shannon and Kenzie rolled their ankles. We're like,
we all wanted to see.
I don't mean that the people sitting on the bench aren't good. I mean that, and I don't wish injury on anybody, but I mean that you're 1 or 2 injuries away from some players who probably don't want to be playing National League at serious risk of doing so. And the same with the Champions League, when there was a couple of players who couldn't make it, there was almost no one on the bench.
Great point. Yeah. Great point. Ross, anything to add on that?
I think it's a bit disrespectful to some of the Bristol players, because you're saying that they wouldn't walk into the top 5 of the Beck's team. Is that what you're saying? So if you're saying with Davish on the bench, none of the Bristol players would make top 5. So you wouldn't want a nice 6'7" collector underneath the post. You wouldn't want a James Wilcox who's going to score you 74 goals in a season. You wouldn't want a Kira Wilcox who's going to score you 74 goals in a season. You wouldn't want somebody like Lizzie Tighe, who's been in the National League for a long time, can score you 10 goals in a game in a World Championships, wasn't it, for Ireland in that game? Scored 10.
Yeah.
I think that at least 4 of those players would look into possibly 5. I could go on about all of them, but I don't want to miss people out just in case they're watching this. Tony Clark is like one of the fastest players I've seen since he was, knee high to a grasshopper. He's not that much taller now, but since he was at Croydon. So I would argue that there are definitely players within that Bristol team that would definitely get into that Beck team, personally speaking.
The maddest thing is Toby isn't the fastest player in the squad. I think Johnny would beat him in a foot race. I think Johnny Potter's faster.
Yeah. I think it's a great insight as well, right? Like, that's the point, is that we get these people on that have a really deeper level of insight into the game and provide a different kind of, input into what we're looking at, right? Ultimately, I didn't know James Wilcox that well before he joined Bristol. What a player he was last season. Absolutely agree. And I think that's where it's really interesting, because I think if you were to argue, would those players get into the Beck team? I think there's a version that would, but I'm arguing, would it beat out someone like Dav? That's where the fun question becomes. That's where the fun, discussions come of those things. And I think that's why this idea is fun, to have these conversations and open them, to make sure that people are aware of the players that maybe people weren't aware of before, and say, keep your eyes on these guys when we upload videos to YouTube, because they're going to be the difference makers.
Yeah, definitely. Just on kind of individual players, is there anyone that you think maybe is one to watch this year, someone that we might not typically think of, like a James Wilcox, for example? I know obviously the numbers speak for themselves last year, but any kind of new players into the league, or anyone you think is going to be crucial this year?
So I'll probably put Kira Wilcox out there. She's already scored 6 goals a game, first 2 games this season, and a lot of, they were all different types of goals. So I think you can't ignore stats like that. I will also say Hannah Bealey. She's probably going to be in the lower end of the league, but I think in the last 2 games, she's scored several goals. She's also scored the first 2 goals of both games she's played in this year. So she scored the first 2 goals against us when we played last weekend. I've watched the first half of the Tigers game. She scores the first 2 goals a game. If she can keep that streak going Like, it's only going to help Bearsted. And then more of a shout out to Bromley and give some of the boys a look in is actually, I think that Lucian Kenny-Dwyer, so my Ireland teammate, moving to Bromley, actually a really big transfer. I leave the analysis of your own team to you, Ross, but I think rebounding was probably an area that you wanted a bit more of. And actually, Lucian, with all 6 foot, a lot of him under the post, really has freed up Tom Young, who's a really talented outside player as well as a post player. And he's already scoring better because there's another big boy at the post. And the two have played together at university, have won the Bucks championships together. I think that's going to be a really interesting combo to watch.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with most of that. I mean, I'm going to shout out to Kira Wilcox and James Wilcox. I know they're part of my Welsh squad, but I don't think that any player or any 2 players has ever come into the National League and in their first season scored 130 goals between them, 140 goals between them. And as Lizzie quite rightly says, I think Kira scored 16 goals, 14 goals in her first 2 games. I think James not far off that as well. But I mean, I think it just, I don't want to take that away from what Bristol are doing. Like, it's the squad of Bristol, I think, as Lizzie says, is pretty deep at the moment. I'm quite impressed with all of the players that they have there. Say Johnny Potter, I think, started on the bench, and Laurie Fabian's a fantastic player. Leo, Toby, and I've forgotten the lot guy.
Tom
Greenfield.
Yeah.
But they've got a real good squad that would, I think, any combination of players that they have would give definitely anyone from 5 to 7, 5 to 10 down in the league, probably beat them, and the rest of them would really have a really good game against them. So that's Bristol out the way. I'm not going to talk about them anymore because Lizzie's here. Don't want to talk about it too much. In terms of Bromley, yeah, that was a tough one because we lost Max Manning, who was our 6'7", 18-year-old player. We lost him to university. We were hoping he was going to still be able to come back and play. And unfortunately, 2 weeks before the league started, he decided that he was going to take a break from Korfball. So that was a massive loss for us. So then started the acquisition of trying to get some more height into the team. And I've been a massive fan of Lucian's since I refereed a game Bucks about 2 years ago, and I watched this guy play, and I thought he's going to be a Korfball player. And I followed him with Ireland. I think he was completely underrated last year with Ireland and didn't get as much game time as he should have done. But he's really flourishing now. So I'm really glad we got him. And as Lizzie says, it does free up Tom, takes him more to the outside. I think he's already scored. He scored 4 goals on Sunday. I think he only managed 8 or 9 last season because he spent so much time underneath the post. So that's good.
And also just like, what an absolutely wonderful player to have in your squad. I just can't say enough nice things about him. Just a lovely guy.
I've told him ever since I've known him, I've told him that I'd love to coach him. Every time I see him, I've told him I'd love to coach him. And luckily enough, I now have the pleasure of being able to coach him. So it's really good. And it's good for Bromley, and I think it'll be good for him playing National League this year. No disrespect to the promo leagues and the regional leagues, but I think National League is a massive step, and it really does improve players tenfold. Other players to watch for, it's a bit tough because I don't want to say underrated players because it sounds like I mean, I've always been a massive fan. Liam Geddes for Kingfisher has got to be one of the most underrated players for me to play the game. He floats around the pitch. His passing ability and his vision are unbelievable, and I personally think he would walk into anybody's team if they gave him the chance. It's one of these things where it's just underrated. And I'll say this because I'm quite bitter. Kingfisher for many, many years were a top 4 team, even came second one year with the likes of Liam Geddes, with the likes of Mallory Gore, Rachel Turner, Amy Turner, all these players. Never once while they were a Kingfisher player did they ever get selected for England. Never once. When they leave the club with Kingfisher, then they get selected for England. So I think Kingfisher were very harshly treated back in the day because they had some amazing players that I think could have gone a long way. That's about it. I mean, Bromley obviously have some amazing talent. Kashala, unfortunately, we lost Georgia before our first game of the season to injury. So we've been without our captain and stalwart player for the last 2 games. Fingers crossed, she's going to be available and fit for Sunday. Obviously, my daughter, Megan, she's just come across Jacob Rivers. Like, this kid is, if I was to pick a player that he was like, I'd say Charlie Vogel, and I think he will be that good. If not, sorry, Charlie, if not better.
Yes.
And hopefully he's not going to, I'm hoping he's not watching this and it's going to go to his head and he's going to stay on the outside and shoot too much and he's going to do some collect work. But I think he's going to be an amazing player. Absolutely. If he doesn't make the England squad, I will walk away from Korfball.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
And just to kind of round that up, I'd say my kind of one to watch and to have been a great addition to a team will be Sandy Forsyth up at going from Highbury up to Norwich Knights. I think they've no disrespect to these players, they've had Claire Deek as kind of their main goal contributor on the girls' side. Obviously Adele a few years ago, but as she stopped playing, used to pop up quite a few goals. But Sandy, I think, offers a kind of proven track record of being able to score pretty consistently at this level, and she will give you 3 or 4, maybe more a game, more on her day.
5 against us on Sunday.
Oh right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She had a bit of a coming together with Joe Bedford in our first game where she thought he should have had a yellow card, but she's not afraid to get involved in the mix around the post as well, and give as good as she gets. So I think she's just a real asset to that team in an area that they were probably lacking some goals. That's kind of my main one as well there. Don't know if you, James, had anything else you wanted to go through with this? Where we're just too much time.
No, thank you to Lizzie and Ross for taking more time than we initially anticipated. It's so great to open these conversations, and these conversations that we were having at the pub after games is exactly what we kind of wanted to bring to life in this podcast, right? We wanted to be able to have open discussion and help listeners learn more, help us learn more, right? The reality is, for me, as mentioned at the start of the podcast that Ross and Lizzie, you wouldn't have heard, I'm relatively new to this, and it's those conversations that you get going that you find so insightful and interesting, and that's kind of what we wanted to rip the curtain back on and provide to other people to try and engage them more in korfball. And hey, maybe it occasionally ruffles a few feathers, but the reality is it's just talking that sport, isn't it? Everyone's got their opinions, and
that's what we like,
and that's what we want, and we want to raise that question, and we want people to be more engaged in korfball and to care more about it. And I think, to be honest with you, this first episode, in terms of how insightful you've both been, has been far greater than I'd actually anticipated. So I want to say, massive thank you to you both. I cannot wait for the rest of the season, and I have no doubt that we're going to be asking both of you to come on individually to actually dive into kind of more about yourself, your history in korfball, and just talking about korfball in the future. And just a massive thank you to you both. It's been a total privilege, should I say, having you both on, and a pleasure. And thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you very, very much. You've made it very easy to host. Lots to say, lots of insight, and great to get coverage from 2 different teams that are going to be very exciting to watch this year, and the league in general should be a good one. So yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers, Ross. Cheers, Lizzie.
It's been really good.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
No worries, guys. No worries. Take care.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Right.
Do you kick us out, or do we need to leave?
You need to leave. Sorry, we can edit that out, or maybe we won't. Maybe we just leave that in.
Can you see yourself out?
Amazing.
Please?
You don't have to. I'm just more like waiting here. Like I can stay forever if you want, but
yeah, we need it.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you guys.
See you guys. Cool. Nice catching up.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, Caitlin.
Well.
That
just me and you, babe.
Wasn't that great? They were fantastic. I think their insight into
they were great guests.
Just incredible, right? What a first 2 guests.
Yeah, and it's really great to have a player current player like Lizzie, who has played in London and down in Bristol, and has also had international experience, but also just knows everyone. Like me being out for a year, I've realised the game has actually changed a lot, and there are lots of players that I don't know of now. I need to watch out for, basically, but also great to hear from Ross as well, who was coached extensively, and also just to hear him kind of finding a love for coaching again, and to be at the helm of a really well set up club that seems to be going from strength to strength in a sport which we know struggles with retaining players. Seems to be developing really, really well. So, and both offered great insight into how the season's going to go.
I loved it, and I think I'm hoping for all the listeners that hear this, we all have our I guess not his opinions, but we all have the people that we're interested in. Like Toby Clark is one of my favourite players in the league because he's the first person that ever got me into Korf, my first coach. So he's for me, he's one of the best players. And Blake, who I played with at Brighton University, you have these kind of favourable players, but having people come in and share with you actually.
Not Blake Powerful, man.
Oh no. Well, hey, listen, future podcast guess that. but it's so good just learning about other people's names and hearing about other players that we can now look out for. And they're uploading those videos to YouTube more now. And we need to shout out every club that's doing that and thank them, because this is helping the sport grow. So hopefully this podcast alongside those videos can help people engage more and open up more conversation. I want to hear people telling me who we've missed. I want to hear people saying you didn't mention that. And that's the point. We can't mention everyone. Sometimes people are going to disagree, but tell us about it. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you think we're wrong. We'd love to hear about it. And I can't wait to open more of these conversations throughout the season and get more insight from people that we didn't know. Like, we didn't speak about so many teams properly. I'd love to really dive into all of them, and we'll do that hopefully over the next over the next year or so, right? So
more chat about Beck, please.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think we have to spread that out a little bit. It's a bit of a biased poll, isn't it? Or panel, should I say, me and you. But I think that gives us a good opportunity to wrap up, Caitlin, and to thank the listeners and to say this is, like we said, first podcast in the bag. How did you find it?
Good. I think very helpful to have such, a knowledgeable guests on, and I think we got some good insight into a lot of things. So, but yeah. I'll work on. I can always improve,
We can always improve. So I'll just wrap it up here and tell everybody that the goal is for us to be on YouTube, for us to be on Spotify, for us to be on all the kind of podcast channels that you guys get. If anyone has suggestions, we'll be uploading them to our social media. You can reach out to us there. We'd love opinions on what you want from the podcast. What sort of things do you want to hear? Who do you want to hear from? What guests do you want? What type of content do you want? We are all ears, and we hope to bring as much energy and new kind of fresh ideas to this platform and to this community as possible. So please reach out, let us know, and we look forward to the next year. So yeah, that, I guess, from myself, that's all. And Caitlin, I'll let you kind of close out the pod.
Oh God, what an honor. Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. See you in a bit.